Ever since their fragile affinity for men ended centuries ago, sirens have been considered particularly nasty creatures to deal with. Yet none measure up to the horrid ways in which humans have described these monsters, quite like the sea witch known as Melusine, the mad and dangerous lady of the deep. You see, Melusine was unlike most sirens, not only in scale color, but also in her origins. Though not many remain who know her story, there are still a handful of druids who can recite the tragic tale of Melusine's mother, and her doomed love affair with a Skelligan pirate. Fucusia was her name, and against her better judgment, she'd fallen in love with Riogon of Pharaoh, a pirate captain with a passion for adventure and a disdain for the prospect of a simple life. And he had no problem leaving the siren behind whenever he would set off on his ever-frequent voyages. Yet, blinded by love, Fucusia thought nothing of it, and she was convinced his passion for her was just as strong. But irregardless of his alleged affection for the sea witch, Riogon would often take other lovers while he was away, and many suspected he never truly loved the siren at all. Still, blissfully unaware of his philandering, Fucusia would bestow countless blessings upon her beloved whenever he set out on one of his many forays. The blessings were meant to keep him safe, and for a while, some might say that they did. That was until Riogon's good fortune finally ran out, and he was slain during a raid. It should have been the end of his eventful life, but Fucusia simply refused to surrender her man to the sea without putting up a fight of her own, and even called upon powerful magic to bring him back from his watery grave. Legend holds that, during the ritual, Fucusia demanded that Riogon's life burn as bright as the love between them, words that would miraculously bring her lover back from the clutches of death, though words that would also inadvertently seal his shallow fate. For one thing was certain, while Riogon may have desired the siren as a sailor might desire a whore at the nearest port, he had never really loved Fucusia. And so, from that fateful day forth, the pirate captain was cursed, to never again feel truly alive. Yet, inside what small amount was left of him, there remained a lingering desire to return to the seas, and recapture the thrills he had once felt. And so, with his last ounce of free will, he abandoned Fucusia once more, ultimately shattering the siren's heart. You have to understand, just like mermaids, sirens can experience true love but once in a lifetime, and Fucusia had wasted her one time on a human who didn't love her back. With no spark left between them to fuel the fires of Riogon's waning heart, his hopeless search for satisfaction sparked the beginning of his eternal torment, and his second chance at life quickly turned into a bleak existence of apathy. Since then, he's become known as Riogon the Undying, and they say the pirate became destined to wander the coasts of Spikarog for all time, to never again leave dry land or return to his seafaring adventures, to never again find purpose. Some locals even claim to have bore witness to the wandering man, noting his constant state of lethargy and lack of emotion. They say he merely walks, and walks, and walks, no more than an animated corpse heading no place in particular. And though wiser men than me have dismissed such claims as utter hogwash, writing the sightings off as nothing more than a drunk going about his day, let us not forget that every legend contains a grain of truth. Of course, the sad story of Melusine's mother and the pirate captain wasn't all that made her unique. Like a skilled witcher might set out a stuffed sheep to lure a draconid or griffin, sirens can lure men using their own bodies as decoys, for these hybrids have the ability to transform themselves, or at least their upper half, into that of a beautiful maiden. This illusion, along with their beguiling song, is often enough to draw naive sailors close enough for them to revert back to their monstrous forms and feed. Melusine, on the other hand, had no need for such trickery. You see, long ago, the Sea Witch was worshipped by a group of local fanatics, a clan which had been founded by Riogon himself before his demise. Though in times past its members were known as the Children of Pharaoh, they've long since been referred to as the Cult of Melusine. And it was eventually thanks to them that the siren had no need to hunt for food. It was simply given to her freely. In fact, for centuries, the cultists sated her appetite with offerings of wheat, livestock, and, once every generation, a human sacrifice. Girls known as Brides of the Sea, women who were the direct descendants of Riogon. The clan's founder, yes, but also a man who the cultists believed had cast a dark shadow over his kin. To an outsider, such traditions may seem barbaric, but at the time, these events were a sacred rite that the islanders dared not defy. To them, Melusine wasn't just any old siren. It was their firm belief that the creature was a semi-divine being, with the power to manipulate both the weather and the sea. and they feared she would wreak havoc upon their raiding fleets should they fail to satisfy her insatiable hunger. It may be difficult to believe, but the clan elders claimed it was a great honor to be chosen for such a sacrifice, and insisted that the maidens were simply offered to the sea, not necessarily to its monsters. Yet, for the girls who were tied up and torn apart by tooth and claw as the waves crashed against them, I suspect such mendacious distinctions made little difference. Nevertheless, as the centuries passed, the reason behind the worshippers' terrible practices had been all but forgotten, and the cult slowly faded out of existence. But Melusine endured much the same, only now forced to stalk the coasts of Spikarog in search of food, and devour any and all who were unfortunate enough to stray too close to her lair. Historical records note that she and her massive flock had made their home inside a cave system near the village of Svorlog, a place that the islanders would come to refer to as the Caverns of Melusine. And for centuries, the area was given a wide berth by most folk on the isle. Inevitably, there did come a brief time when some people suspected Melusine had been slain, specifically during the Witcher Gerd's visit to the isle. The Bear Witcher was in the service of Torgir the Red, the Jarl of Onskellig at the time, and witnesses claimed that once inside the cave system, Gerd gutted siren after siren. Yet, not even he was able to kill them all. After his first assault, the Witcher's guide surrendered to his wounds, and he too eventually had to flee, as more and more kept coming, leaving Melusine's fate a mystery. If the Witcher did turn a siren's head into his employer, it certainly wasn't the right one, because in the years that followed Gerd's blood-soaked visit to the island, Melusine had merely been in hibernation. But eventually, she awoke. And, as one might expect, she was hungry. Lucky for the folk on Spikarog, Gerd would not be the last Witcher Melusine encountered. Sometime during the year 1272, when a notice was posted about the disappearance of a man named Nils, the siren's last known victim, it was rumored that the famous Geralt of Rivia chose to investigate. When he asked around, the villagers of Svorlog suspected Nils had simply grown bored of his woman and fled the isle. But the widow assured the Witcher that she had seen the siren carry the man off as he screamed, and though she certainly would have preferred that her eyes and ears had somehow betrayed her, the famed White Wolf would eventually discover that she was right, and that Nils had perished. But for all that, when the time came to face down the mighty siren, Geralt made sure that the body he found had belonged to the last person the Sea Witch ever harmed, and that fateful day would forever mark the end of Melusine, the mad and dangerous lady of the depths. But whatever became of Witcher Gerd? And what was he doing in the service of the Jarl from Onskellig? Well, my friends, that is a tale for another time.